Hello, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. And wherever you are in this wide, wonderful, beautiful world, you are very welcome to the Global Sales Leader podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cooper. I am the sales relationship coach. Everything that we do with your clients, your customers, your people, your peers is all about building an effective relationship. Sales is also about building effective relationships. Even when you cold call and when you speak to a client for the first time, what you want to do and what you're hoping to do is build that long-term longevity of a relationship. This podcast is all about insightful leaders in leadership within sales, all the facets around sales elements, psychology, coaching, uh, neuroscience, you name it. We're going to be talking about it because what I want to do within this podcast is help people learn, help people grow, help people get better at what they do. This is why I do, because this is my passion. This is my purpose. And I like to connect all three to my dream. When I speak with people like Paul Ross, who's my guest today, I want to feed forward lots of golden nuggets of knowledge that people can be inspired, people can be entertained. And Paul, you're very welcome to the show today. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. And before we begin this exploration together of the world of subconscious influence and subconscious selling, I just want to say that it is my honor to be the person who's moving forward the discussion and moving forward. A magnificent learning is about to take place.
Awesome. Like, I love the subconscious mind. I've done a huge amount of study in this area. So I think we're going to be completely congruent with exactly what we're going to be speaking about today. And we're going to be selling to the unconscious mind because the unconscious mind is a big area. It's what we say and what we do and how we talk to ourselves and how others hear what we're saying and how our body language works in congruent with our mind, with our mouth, with our face, and everything else. So, Paul, I'm going to give you a little bit of a bio about yourself. Hopefully, you'll be feeling really good and educated about yourself afterwards. Paul is on a passionate mission to guide already successful sales professionals, and we're completely in line here, and entrepreneurs to radically, if I can speak properly today, up their sales results. You're an author as well. You're a speaker and elite sales trainer. Oh, that's your book. That's too subtle for me. That's I didn't quite get there. We'll have a look at that in a few moments. You're also a sales trainer like myself. You're a master hypnotist. I've studied hypnosis as well. You're a master practitioner of NLP, neuro-linguistic program, which is the study of the brain, the mind, and the study of success. And I've also studied that to the highest degree as well. So we're pretty much in line with what we do. And you've guided over the last 30 years. God, you're only 30. Wow, that's good. And you've guided 10,000 people of the power of words to design their own results. So
There's one thing missing from the biography. I am an allurophile. That's someone who loves cats. I am a cat lover, a cat adorer. As you say over there, I believe you call them moggies. I love moggies. I love kitty cats.
I call them a rat. We have a rat. Oh. We have a cat here. Sorry, we have a cat here. It's called, I'm only kidding. It's called Cutie. My daughter named her. She's a lovely little cat, feral cat, and we took her on board. So she's a lovely cat. So I'm in line with yourself. So look, you're welcome, Paul. If you can give us a little bit, like 30 years, you've obviously accumulated a lot of knowledge and a lot of impact over those periods of time. Can you give us succinct anchor points along the way? And I know you understand the word anchor. Along the way of what inspired you, what motivated you to get to where you are.
I have a very unusual story, Jason. Is that I began my drive, my motivation to learn NLP because I was a 27-year-old man who'd never had a date in his life and had terrible shame and, self-confidence issues. could not find an answer. And so I stumbled on NLP, and I began to find ways to address my own unconscious blocks, barriers, limiting beliefs and attitudes. And I came out of my shell of shame and lack of confidence and began to be able to speak to women and to communicate in ways that were really attractive, and got my first girlfriend at 27, if you can believe that. And I thought, hey, this stuff really works. I'm tired of working as a paralegal. Maybe I can get a career as a dating coach. And so I started out with that, applying NLP to that. And then I immediately began to see the sales application. So that was my first waypoint, my first milestone in diving into this world. And because I have a outsider's perspective, I'm not caught in the paradigm and the limited ideas, limited stale ideas of what works in the world of sales. Does that make sense? It
Yeah,
takes an outsider to come in and look into the box and go, no, it's time to disconnect the dots, color outside the lines, and break the whole thing with a thought hammer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I completely understand. Like, I've been doing sales for about 27, 28 years, but I had to take a stop and calibrate and really understand myself and build up my own passion again for what I love to do. And I think if you're in the realm of sales, you have to love it. You have to like it. You have to engage with it, but you also have to understand other people.
Well, I have an ulterior motive for this
Okay,
show,
tell me
and
that. Yeah.
whenever I speak in any aspect, whether it's in front of a stage with hundreds of people, whether it's in a one-on-one training or group training, whatever it is, my ulterior motive is to get people to fall in love with language, because language structures consciousness, shapes decisions, drives behavior. And so I believe, yes, you have to love the activity of sales, but that is embedded in a larger frame of loving language. I
Yep.
just, it is something. Do you remember? I don't know how the schools work there. You're right now, you're in Dublin, but you're not Irish. Where were you raised, sir?
No, I'm English. Don't hold
You're
that
English.
against me.
I don't
Yeah.
hold it against you. I love jolly old England. I have friends over there. I love Canary Wharf
Oh
in
yeah, Canary
London.
Wharf. Yeah, yeah.
I love it. I love it. And so I don't know how it works in English schools, but in American schools, we do grammar lessons and we diagram sentences. Here's the
That's right.
subject, object, verb, noun. I loved that so much that when the bell rang for recess, I didn't want to go out and play with the other kids. Mostly because I never had friends, but mainly because I really enjoyed doing that activity. So I want people to fall in love with language, in addition to learning to improve their sales skills and to understand communication. That's my ulterior motive. I want them to love what I love.
But how do we do that as professionals like ourselves? How do we get people to love the language and the linguistics around that? Because it does take a lot of practice to do, and it does take a lot of practice to craft to make sure that you're understood. And from the buyer's perspective, you have to like really intently listen, which is obviously a massive skill, but you have to use your linguistics in the correct way, in a positive sense.
I think you have to get the principles first. My number one principle is you're never selling your product or service.
Agree.
You're always selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. Now, that's a mic drop, but here's another mic drop. Nowadays, your prospects don't trust their ability to make good decisions. It used to be that know, like, and trust was the big magic words that people
Mm,
said that you have to get in sales. And that's true. But know, like, and trust is no longer enough. Now they have to trust themselves. So there's a parallel pathway, a two-track pathway that you have to take in sales. So
yeah,
understanding the concepts makes applying the techniques a lot more fun.
yeah. No,
And
I completely
the
concur.
final one, well, there's several, but there's only so much I can discuss in the time that you've so generously given me. So that's why at the end we're going to give out some ways where they can connect more and get some more education from me. But setting that aside for a minute, the other principle I'd want to put out there is whatever you can get your prospect to imagine for themselves will be perceived by them as being their own thought, and
Yep.
therefore they will not resist it. So the way I teach how to do that is to be deliberately vague. That's one way,
Hmm.
and to offer up suggestions.
Hmm.
And so the first thing I say you have to ask is, what state of consciousness do you want your prospect to be in? Not how do I present the marketing plan, which is important, or what are the aspects of the deal. First, ask yourself, what state of mind do I want them to be in? Now, if I may, can I give a metaphor?
Yeah, you can give us many metaphors because we know that metaphor connects directly inside to the brain and
Hmm.
builds up their imagination.
It sure does. So let's say I want to conduct a current of electricity. I have a sheet of gold foil and I have a sheet of cardboard. Which one of those is going to conduct the electricity better? It's not a trick question.
Oh, it's the foil, isn't it?
The foil. So do you want your prospect in the cardboard state of being unable to focus? And nowadays prospects don't have the focus, you see, because of this device and texting and Instagram and the rest of it. Do you want them in the cardboard states of being unable to focus, of being skeptical, of being scattered, of not trusting themselves? Or do you want them in the gold foil states of focused, of wanting to believe you, of believing that there's a great opportunity in front of them, and believing that they deserve to have it, believing in the possibility that they can have it and that they deserve to have it?
Hmm.
So when you do sales properly, you're creating that state of consciousness first. Now, that's a radically different idea. The idea that selling is about creating states of consciousness. That's not an idea that most people think about. So,
Hmm.
yes, we're using the power of suggestion to implant our suggestions in our prospect's mind. That's true. But we're
Yeah.
also expanding their mind to include new possibilities and new ideas. And in that sense, selling is a heroic and even healing activity. When you take people beyond what they thought was possible, beyond what they thought they could deserve and keep and have and enjoy, that's a heroic and healing thing. So the idea that you are a hero when you do sales, it totally reframes the idea that I might lose, or what if I get rejected? The worst that can happen is they're not ready to make the decision
Of
to
course. Yeah.
benefit themselves.
Yeah, I completely concur with that. I think you also have to create the power in your own subconscious to direct that within it. For me, I like to set myself up in a really good, wonderful state of mind. I even do it before we come on board today, because we want to make sure we have excellence. We want to make sure that we give value forward. We want to make sure that we give value for this bigger audience as well. But when we do value selling and when we do understand, I think we have to empathetically really understand and position ourselves within the client's shoes. So you're almost doing that holistic point of view. So you really resonate with them. You understand the challenges that they're facing because you're sitting in a position of them as opposed to a position of yourself. Because selling is not about you; it's always about the other person.
I don't
That's the
think
way I
that's,
look at it.
with all due respect, may I disagree with you respectfully?
Okay,
I don't think it's an either or. I don't think it's about either taking the position of the prospect or you being the one
mm.
who's focused on yourself. I think both are required. You
Okay,
need
I'm
you
curious
need
about that.
you need leadership and dominance,
Of
but you
course.
also need compassion for your
Yep.
prospect. I don't want to have empathy for my prospect. I want to have compassion. Here's the distinction. If I have empathy for my prospect, then I'm going to be feeling what they're feeling. So if they're nervous and doubtful, I'm going to be feeling nervous and doubtful. I'd lose emotional leadership. If I'm compassionate, I can see where they're at without having to go there for myself. That's a sales superpower, to be able to
Mm.
see where your prospect's at without having to go there for yourself. And that's only established through what I would think is a meditative process. I meditate, but
Of
also
course.
being aligned in your body, breathing correctly, breathing from the belly, being
Yep.
centered,
Agree.
and having what we call in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, uptime, which simply means your internal dialogue is quiet.
Yep.
So this is why I teach my clients and the people I train and et cetera, how to quiet their mind just a little bit. Your mind's always going to be chattering and chattering and chattering.
Yeah, that's something I do actually. Is when we're in a room or online or whatever, I get everyone to talk at the same time. And then afterwards said, did you hear what anyone else said? And they go, no. I said, well, that's going on in your side of your brain when you're actually with a client. So it's quiet in the mind. I like to build up pictures in people's minds. So when they actually create an understanding, they're actually intently listening, using these big flappy things on our ears to actually listen, to understand. So tell me this.
But I want to back up.
Go on, then.
Just and really hammer on the concepts.
Go on, then.
The ability to see where the prospect's at without having to go there for yourself, and giving them radical permission to have their first response without accepting it as their best response. Those are the two skill sets. Now, I don't know how much time we have to tell a story.
We have lots of time to tell a story.
All right, let me tell a story. I learned this as a dating coach. I don't take my clients. I don't do it anymore. But back then when I did it, I wouldn't take my clients out into the field to meet women. It was just too humiliating for them. But a guy said, I'll give you $10,000 cash if you'll take me out for 90 minutes. I said, bring the cash over. Brings it over. I do a quick count. So let's go. Take him to a restaurant that has an outdoor lobby where people go on the pole. That's your British term, right? Go on the pole. Yeah. Go on the pole. And so he began to, for 90 minutes, he was just crashing and burning. Women threw their drinks in his faces. It was really bad. But to his credit, he kept a smile on his face, but I couldn't take it. Jason, have you ever been so humiliated for another person's embarrassment that you couldn't take it? Even though they were the ones going through the shame? I pull him out of there. I said, let's go. We're standing in the parking lot. This is way before the days of Uber or Lyft, or I don't know what other rideshare services you have.
There's loads of them.
Yeah, whatever it is. So we're waiting for our cabs. And I saw a lovely lady. I said, look, there's a lovely lady waiting for her cab at the end of the evening. Now, for some reason, it went in the wrong ear. And she began screaming at me, shouting obscenities that would make a sailor turn green. My client got very angry. He went to charge at her to give her a piece of his mind. I put my arm out, said, no, she can do whatever she wants. We choose how we respond. Look at her. She's someone's daughter. She's someone's sister. She's someone's best friend. Somewhere, she's deeply loved. Now, there's a moment of confusion on her face, and then she burst into tears, came running over to me, threw her arms around me, began to sob and say, that was the most loving thing anyone has ever said to me. I'm so, so sorry. It had nothing to do with you. I love you. I feel so much love for you. Can I have your phone number? I said, sorry, I'm working. And off we went into the night. But what's the point of the story? I didn't take her I didn't get in rapport with her. Had I been in rapport and had empathy for her, I would have raged at her back. In fact, she was expecting 3 possible responses. She was expecting me either to rage back at her, to apologize, or to slink away. I broke rapport by interrupting her pattern and doing something unexpected. When you interrupt someone's pattern and you break rapport, there's a moment of suggestibility, and you could lead them in a new direction, a better new direction.
Absolutely, I completely
and so I didn't have rapport with her. The idea that you should always have rapport is not true. The idea that you should always empathize with the client is not true. I had compassion for her. And compassion is, I cared about her. I saw her as a human being. I didn't see her as, I don't know what kind of language I can use on the show, a bint. I didn't see her as whatever it was. I didn't see her as a nasty person. I didn't make it about her. I didn't make it about me. How many times in sales, when things go south, when things go sideways, as we say in American English, who was it who said the British and the Americans are two people separated by one language? I didn't make it about me. I simply saw her as a human being who was having a pre-programmed response, and she was in pain, so I interrupted it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
So
it's completely understanding. Like you know that other people have their own challenges in the world. Like we don't know what's going on inside someone's mind, and we don't fully understand the challenges that you could be in a sales call. You don't know the politics that's actually gone on before the call.
no,
They might have been screamed at by their boss to actually get on
or
and
their
do something else.
spouse, or their
Yeah, or
spouse.
they're distracted. They're mentally distracted and they're giving it out to you, but they're not actually meaning it for you. They're meaning it for anyone else actually that is listening. That's why I always think is to always pattern interrupt customer service people as well, because you're angry, you're annoyed, you're pissed off because your broadband's not working and this, that, and the other, and you give out to the other person, but they've got stuff happening in their own shoes as well. So
I'll give you one.
Be calm.
I'll give you one that I always say. Forgive me for interrupting. Yesterday, I was very upset with some bad customer service, and she answered the phone. Hi, this is Monica, blah, blah, blah. Can I help you? I said, I'm going to be exceedingly polite. And I said, I'm going to be very polite and very well-mannered with you.
Yep.
Even though I'm very unhappy, my mother taught me that I can be displeased without being unpleasant. So I'm going to be very pleasant. Is that okay? And she said, sure. So immediately I set a pattern in her up. Like, what? He's displeased, but he's promising to be pleasant to me. Of course. And other times I've said, this is not aimed at you as a person. It's addressed to you in your role as.
Absolutely.
So that disarms the other person as well.
Yeah. Because you know it's not their fault. You know when you're good and when you're nice to people, they respect that. And when you're well-mannered and you're treating people how they want to be treated, and I think that's a big Zig Ziglar quotation, is to treat people how you want to be treated yourself. And I love that sort of point of view. So being in the way where we are now, and COVID, and you've had COVID, and everyone else that I've been speaking to has had COVID, it's bloody awful. But how can we connect right to the people directly when there's a lot of challenges going around them, like yourself that's had COVID? How can we direct the communication a little bit more effectively to them? And this goes out to everyone, because I want to make sure that we bring in good golden nuggets of knowledge, information to help people in these challenging times, help people to actually resonate with them, because it's all about that resonation with them and understanding.
I think it depends. Oh, wow, that's a broad question.
It is. I like a loose question.
Well, okay. I think it depends, first of all, on managing your own state.
Yeah.
And having a state where you're going to extend just a little more patience and not take it personally, be grounded in your body, and have some unconditional happiness that you have the opportunity to communicate with others in a way that can add just a little bit more certainty, a little bit more unconditional peace of mind to them. And that first, you have to go first. That's the number one rule. So learn to, if not control, shape your own state.
Yeah, I completely concur. Another thing I was going to ask you, Paul, if you were interviewing yourself, what questions would you ask yourself?
Sure. First and foremost, how did you become such a world-class, modest, super genius?
That's what I would ask myself first, but I'm asking you this time.
No. I would say, here's a question. I'm going to be starting my own podcast. Perhaps you will be a guest on it.
Love that.
I'm calling it The Influencer's Edge. And that's the place where you come to find out the latest breakthrough techniques. But I don't want to promote my podcast. We haven't got it in the can yet. Can you repeat the question? I got lost in
Yeah,
my own
no, if you were
self-promotion.
interviewing you, what question would you ask
I would
you?
say you've been doing this 30 years. How have you been able to stay so passionate about it? Not how did you get into it, which everyone asks, all due
Mhm.
respects. But how have you managed to stay so passionate about it after 30 years? I'd ask that because that's a deep dive question.
So what would be your answer to that deep dive question?
I'm in love with it. And I'd love to see the moments when my students and clients and trainees have not just a aha, but a holy bleep moment where
Yeah.
their whole way of thinking about the subject changes. Not just one little piece of information, but the whole paradigm, the whole way of the way they think
Flipping
transforms.
the script, I think is the terminology there.
I think it's beyond flipping the script into completely breaking through into a new way of seeing things.
And what other question would you ask yourself?
Um, hmm. How have you persevered through the challenges and setbacks and unknowns that have just beset you throughout your career? That
So what is the gift for that to do that? Because we all
I
get that
learned
at
long
times.
time ago. I have certain affirmations I do, a little prayer practice.
Yeah.
And one of them is that confusion, uncertainty, and setbacks are my joyous gateways to my clarity, my focus, my purpose, my vision, my joyous creation, and and establishment of my amazing and awesome life.
Hmm.
So I reframe those things as something great is about to happen. And then I use the words surrender and embrace. I surrender my right to do the practice of self-pitying and self-doubting and embrace my practice of daily affirming what it is I can do, remembering my past achievements and affirming my will to do what it takes to move to the next steps.
Hmm.
So I do surrender and embrace. And then I bless other people who are further down the path than I am. Bless the success of so and so. May they continue to flourish and prosper and deepen and grow. And I now claim my success and mentorship, learning and venturing with them where possible.
Hmm. I think every now and again, because the way our lives are generating, we're always going forward. We're always going forward. Every now and again, you have to stop and congratulate yourself on what you've actually done and achieved. A lot of people don't do that. When I teach and coach people, I tell them to actually stop and have a bit of gratitude about what they do, and just like pat yourself on the back. And it's amazing that little spark and glint in the eye. Go, oh wow, I've achieved all of that. That's absolutely awesome. But you're absolutely right in affirmations. That's something that I do in the morning and the evening, because every now and again you have to be grateful for what you've done, what you've learnt, what you've achieved, and maybe
Yeah,
what you've overcome as well. Because adversity,
absolutely. It's part of
especially in
life.
this, you've been sick, so you've had adversity quite recently, so you understand what it's like. You're not always going to be well. You're not always going to be 100%,
Nope.
but you can actually go out and deal with it.
Hey,
It's not always
I'm
going to be like this.
I have a very I'm not I wouldn't call myself a Buddhist, but I affirm a lot of the Buddhist ways of looking at life and Buddhist practices. And Buddha said life is filled with unpleasant experience and
Yeah.
suffering. And that's
Yep.
true. And it's true.
And I think, look, us being the way that we are, I don't think there are some people out there, some coaches, trainers, they have this big shiny persona that everything's great, everything's wonderful, everything's fantastic. Okay, yeah, it can be, but we do have things that are vulnerable in our lives. We do have things that are not shiny and not perfect, but we've learnt and grown from it, and we're teaching others to maybe short cut past that. But you will receive a little bit of adversity in your life. Things are not going to
A
happen,
little
but
bit,
as
a
long as you can learn
lot,
and grow from it.
a lot. My parents were immigrants. No, they're the second generation. Their parents were immigrants. They came from Russia and Hungary and Romania with nothing, fleeing anti-Semitic pogroms and persecution. Said nothing, didn't even speak the language. I'm made of stern stuff. People say, how do you survive so much? I say, I'm Russian Ukrainian. I'm a cockroach. You step on me, you better make sure you crush me completely, or I'll 100,000 of my comrades will come to the funeral.
Well, you're probably like most. Like, I'm an immigrant in Ireland. I'm English, but living in Ireland. So we all move around the globe. We're all connected in one way or another. That's the way I believe.
I'm
part Roman, I'm part Viking, or whatever.
I have a personal question for you.
Go on then, fire away. I'm always good.
When you were a young man and the Daleks came on the TV, did you hide behind the sofa?
Yeah, I seem to remember I did when in my younger days, because it was pretty horrific. And nowadays you don't think of it like that, because there's so much stuff being thrown at us by TV news. I don't really watch the news, to be honest with you. Like The Walking Dead and all those sort of zombie programs, you get anesthetized to it in the end, and you get flatlined to it. And it's probably like resilience in a way. If you're into sales and you're doing 1,000 calls over a month or whatever, you get used to getting the knockbacks, and you get used to understanding, well, I just have to pick myself up and just get back on the horse.
I'm sure there are people who are saying, who the hell are the Daleks? So Google Doctor Who. Yep. Google Doctor Who. It was,
I'm glad you knew and understand Doctor Who. Yeah, that's really good. So how can people find out more about you, Paul?
Sure.
I've got your ticker along the bottom down here, speakerpaulross.com. But tell us a little bit more.
Well, you can get in touch with me there. I recommend you can also go to Paul Ross Book. If you go to paulrossbook.com, it will show you a link on how to buy it on Amazon. But if you buy it through there, you'll also get a free course, a free persuasion and mindset course. So go to paulrossbook.com. It will ask for your email address. I mean, we do ask for that, but we don't spam, because we don't want to get shut down. And also it's a beastly rude thing to do.
I completely concur.
That's the way to get it through. If you get it through my site, you'll get the book through Amazon, but you also get some free goodies.
And look, it's all about learning and growing. This podcast is all about finding something that works for you. And whatever Paul said today, and whatever we both said today, if you can take one thing out of what we've said today and apply it and learn it, I think this podcast is definitely worth its weight in gold. And taking some of the elements of what Paul said, building on the metaphor, building the story, and your positioning about how you approach and how you speak and how you engage people is absolutely core skills. And I love what you've said today. I think that's absolutely awesome. So I really appreciate you having me on the Global Sales Leader podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cooper. This has been another phenomenal interview and conversation. I always like to say it's like a two-way dialogue. It's to build knowledge from both of us to enable you and others to get what you want. Would you agree, Paul?
You're a fantastic interviewer, and I like that it was not like questions, but we could actually have a dialogue. I even turn the tables and ask questions of the people who interview me.
Look, I enjoy these. I like, and I treat them like a conversation, because that's exactly how it should be. And that's how people learn, by a conversation. So thank you once again.
I'm going to go get my coffee.